Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. Don't you agree?
The CINIKRADIO podcast.
Hi, I'm Chad L. Coleman, Tyrese from The Walking Dead, and Cuddy from The Wire, and you are listening to the Cinik Radio podcast. Here your host, Cinik.
Hey, the facts are Spider-Man belongs in the MCU. Sony was delusional thinking they didn't need Marvel, and now he's back. And we, the fans, are 100% proudly responsible for that.
Igrihe.
As long as DC wants to make dark and gritty movies, they're going to lag behind Marvel in every category.
And Ryan.
Batman vs. Superman is objectively better than Infinity War.
IG, did we just forget Kim?
You guys completely suck.
This is the greatest show of all time.
And this is episode 142 of the CINIKRADIO podcast. And I'm your devil egg eating host, Cinik. And joining me, as always, my co-host and two men who want to slap the taste out of the cancel culture's mouth, Igrihe and Ryan. And on this week's show, we're breaking down Chapter 11, The Heiress, and Chapter 12, The Siege. We touch on the absurdity of cartoon genocide and the tools that are enraged by it. All this and more, and it starts now. We open The Heiress with the epic descent into Trask as Mando and his team make the impressive smashdown onto the water planet. IG, where would you rate that as far as belly flops? Even though he didn't quite stick the landing. And has the Mandalorian given you a good look at the highs and lows of being a bounty hunter?
Well, in terms of a belly flop, that's kind of a 10. Well, it would win that Norwegian weird diving contest that they have every year where people do weird belly flops from a 10-meter platform. He would have won. It was really, really interesting and fun. And it just shows that, even the best laid plans sometimes don't work out, because he was right there. Like, he had it nailed. He was right on top of it, and then just bloop, off he went. Being a bounty hunter is rough, and he's got an old ship. He's admitted it himself. It's old. It doesn't come up on any of the registrations anywhere. So he's basically driving like an original Model A Ford or something around the galaxy. And it's just not working out all that well. I'm wondering if maybe this is how we lead into somehow he gets a different ship, which would be kind of disappointing, because I really like that the Razor Crest looks a lot different than just about every other ship we've seen.
Yeah, it's very Knights of the Old Republic, the MMO game, where every profession gets their own type of ship. The Razor Crest is kind of like a identifying mark for him at this point. What I really love about this show is that he doesn't always come in and save the day. He doesn't always get the win. There's some mistakes and errors of judgment, and he seems to trust way too often. Makes you wonder when it's all going to come full circle and it's going to cost him. I do really love that about the show, that, when he wins big, and when he loses, it's pretty ugly. Ryan, did you happen to notice the crane was a converted AT-AT? Is it the little details, the callbacks, the Easter eggs that continue to make this product head and shoulders above anything else we've seen in Star Wars?
Yeah, no, it really is one of the great things about Star Wars, I think, and about this show. I noticed that it looked like an AT-AT. It was, it had the legs, but I didn't think that it was actually repurposed until after the fact when I was reading some stuff about it. And that's one of the great things of the show, is it really is for everyone. If you never watched Star Wars before, you can, you love like Mando and the relationship with Baby Yoda and the effects and the story. If you're a casual Star Wars fan, there's going to be things for you there. And if you're a hardcore Star Wars fan, there's going to be even really super deep dive Easter eggs that are going to hit the spot for you too. So I think it really rewards fans, rewards kind of being a fan of it and following all the different content. And the other cool thing is, like, the thing with Star Wars is there's so much content that you're going to have fans of specific areas. So you have people who like read all the books. You have people who are fans of the legend stories. You have people who are fans of the comics. You have people who are fans of the video games. There's Clone Wars and Rebels. And so what's cool is that, there are Easter eggs for all of those. So you could be, there's going to be something from an obscure little thing in a video game, or there might be some little thing from one panel in a comic, and it brings all of that there. So it really, again, does reward fandom, and makes it that much more exciting, because there are just these great layers to it that you can go, watch it over and over to, to seek out the Easter eggs, or read after the fact. Like, there was this cool thing, there was some stuff from the next episode that I didn't know about that makes things even that much more interesting. So I really do think that, it goes above and beyond, to really make the show, the Easter eggs aren't, you don't need to know know them, but it just makes it that much more engaging and interesting that they can throw those things in there.
It really is, and it gives it another layer. Like, it's not just a great Star Wars show for people that don't know Star Wars, but it's a great show for the people that do and catch those little things. And it's kind of cool that they did repurpose the AT-AT for that, because I believe that the original idea came from shipping cranes for the AT-ATs. So that idea kind of came full circle. IG, we've all seen the Quarren before. We all had the action figures growing up, but were you impressed to see this squid-like races in action? And what do you think is going to get Djarin killed first, his armor or the child?
Oof. You know, on the Quarren, like, it's really cool that, you know, we had seen one before this. He was in Jabba's palace. He was hanging out there, which, if they're really kind of a waterborne type species hanging out on Tatooine, doesn't seem like the smartest move in the entire galaxy. And they were in the animated series in Clone Wars, but live action, we'd only seen the one. So seeing a bunch of them around doing things, kind of being a part of the universe, really kind of drew me in even further. But, you know, I think he needs to spend more time doing some kind of training on Baby Yoda on how to not get yourself in so much trouble, or maybe how to get yourself out. You know, do the little hand wavy thing and get yourself out. Because every time something happens to that kid, in goes Mando, and, you know, trouble be damned. He's going in. And I think the kid could get himself out of more than he's letting on, because he's 50 and he's like, you know, what, 12 inches tall? You have to have a little bit to be able, like, because there's no sign of parents at any point. Who knows how long he's been a hostage? I'm sure the kid is a little bit more wily than he's letting on.
Ryan, is this exactly how you jack a fool for his armor? I mean, we talked last week about the half-hearted plans on Tatooine. Drown the fool, drown the kid, drown everybody, as long as you get that sweet, sweet Beskar. Which did you enjoy more, the trap or the rescue?
You know, even when you think he's safe, he's not safe. Because even if the people don't know a thing about the child, or, you know, or Baby Yoda, they want the Beskar. And as we've talked about in the past with him, it's like, in the moment, like his ability to freestyle is great, but his ability to anticipate problems is not so great. And so he kind of finds himself in these situations where he should have been able to predict and or have been more prepared, and he's not. But he's able to kind of freestyle his way out of it, although in this case, maybe, you know, not so much. First couple episodes, I was a little concerned that there's not that sense of impending danger or impending doom. But actually, but then you got it with the spiders in the previous episode, and then in this, like, I was terrified, and so that was really scary. And then the rescue was awesome, because it really did seem like he was in peril, and there was really no way to get out of it. And then suddenly he was rescued. So I think, you know, I don't know which one I liked more. I guess I liked the rescue more, but it was a really great sequence that worked really well to get me really scared and worried for both he and Baby Yoda, and then, you know, kind of felt triumphant at their rescue.
IG, did it feel like a live action episode of Clone Wars with Bo-Katan jumping into the screen and to make the save?
It really did. I mean, and I started to recognize that they looked like the Night Watch immediately upon coming in. They had the right color scheme, the right marking on their armor, the different eye shapes and stuff in some of the helmets. Like, I started to get amped up right as soon as they jumped on the screen. I'm like, we're going to get somebody right now. This is so cool. And I was so excited. And then the helmets come off and you watch him almost basically gasp and like, oh, how dare you take your helmets off? The whole thing. Like, and then she's like, I'm Bo-Katan. And I was just so excited because she was kind of a badass in both Clone Wars and Rebels. So she's kind of got some Star Wars behind her, and, you know, some more of us a little bit more geeky fans have watched all that stuff too.
Ryan, we've gone at length about this damn helmet, and spoiler alert, so has Pedro Pascal, behind the scenes at least. But once you found out that normal people just go ahead and take the thing off after combat, how quickly would you say screw your Death Watch principles and just be like, all right, I'm taking this thing off from now on?
To use a recent feeling, it's like that was kind of the feeling when, like, you have a couple friends and like meet somebody and it's like, oh crap, they're a Trump supporter. You know, it's like, oh, they're the extremist. I guess that's the example I could think of, but you can think of any number of examples of, like, you know, I can imagine like you could see the Bo-Katan, her kind of reaction of, oh crap, that's who we're dealing with. Okay. And so it was a really funny moment And I think, it was an important moment because I think it answered a lot of questions for all of us, where, there was a question of like, were they retconning, what Mandalorians were, or, what was going on? And so, no, it's effectively like, Death Watch, maybe he was like a splinter faction of that, but whatever, the evolution of it was, he was clearly like a fundamentalist. And so, yeah, I think in his case, I think it's important because it appears as if he didn't even realize there were Mandalorians that took their masks off. And it was kind of hilarious when he, because he pulled the same thing in the first episode where he says, when he takes the helmet off and he's like, wait, where'd you get that armor? And he pulls the same thing there. And that look of like, what are you talking about? I'm from Mandalore. So I think that moment was, that moment was great. It was funny to me, but it was also, I think, really important. And I do think, especially with some of the behind the scenes things, I don't know when this was written and if it was written with that in mind that, okay, we're going to start angling towards him being able to take the mask off, but it does set up a situation where he can start to become a little bit more lax in whether or not he's going to wear it. So I do think that moment was meaningful in addition to kind of being funny and a fun little moment.
IG Bowen Company want to shipjack an Imperial transport for weapons that they need to reclaim Mandalore. Your thoughts on the takeover, Bo-Katan's search for the Darksaber, her motivations, and your rating?
Well, you can see that Bo-Katan and her cohorts are a little more seasoned as far as some of this stuff goes, because they don't just stand out in the open and get shot repeatedly. They take good shots. They use the enhancements their armor has to put them in advantageous situations, where our good friend Din Djarin just runs right out in the middle of it, takes some shots into the Beskar, and throws some thermal detonators down the hallway. A little bit different style. Both are somewhat effective, but I think that if he's going to have some longevity, he's going to have to learn to hide behind some cover once in a while. That being said, the actual method by which they actually got through the ship and took everything over was really entertaining. It was interesting. It was fast-paced. I really enjoyed it. Watching Bo-Katan try and get information out of the Imperial officer for him to basically poison pill and shock himself to death was even more entertaining and something we hadn't seen before, so I was kind of into that. But, truth be told, getting the little tip off to head to Corvus and go see Ahsoka was just the icing on the cake for this episode. This is probably right now one of my top 3 episodes. It was really a good time. I had so much fun watching it. I watched it 3 times because it was just that much fun. A lot of good visuals in it, and anytime we get more than one Mandalorian running around, I'm into it. So I'm going to give it a 9.5. I really liked it.
I'm slightly mixed on the episode. The main reason is just how short it is. It's kind of like the anti-Game of Thrones. Like in Game of Thrones, if something was going to happen, you knew it would take episodes for any one thing to happen because you'd have to spend all the time planning and getting there and side quests as you're going there. Where with this show, like so much happens in an episode that it's almost like a dizzying pace. So my only criticism of the episode really is just that 30 minutes or 32 minutes, whatever it was, is a little too short for like what happened in it. And that, it went from basically 3-4 big set pieces in a blinding pace without a chance to kind of breathe. So that's the only little thing I would say. Otherwise, everything else in this episode was awesome. From the opening when he, almost sticks the landing and flops, the comedy in this was great. In those moments, even though there wasn't a lot of Baby Yoda, the stuff with Baby Yoda was cute, especially in the end when he's like wanting to take a pet with him, and kind of redeeming himself a little bit after, the potential genocide. But I loved seeing Bo-Katan. It did feel like a Clone Wars episode in a good way. The big set pieces were all really great and really worked well. It just was a little just rushed. It just felt like, a lot and no real time to breathe. But I really liked it. I thought it moved the plot forward. And, hearing Ahsoka, we knew that Ahsoka was coming, but to hear that, hear the name in a live action Star Wars show was really cool. And, I'm excited because I think, it's tying things back up. We know that, we'll probably get more Bo-Katan and a fight for the Darksaber. We're starting to see where the show is headed. So I think where the first couple episodes were good, but kind of a little unsure of what this season was about. We're really starting to see where the season's heading, and I'm really excited about that. So, I'll give this episode an 8.5. Again, really, really good. And my critiques are less about like what's happening in the show and more about just maybe just adding a little bit more to give us some more time to enjoy it. But again, great episode. So far I'm really enjoying the season and set up for a really awesome, middle and end of the season.
Yeah, I absolutely love the episode myself. I mean, using Katie Sackhoff, who was the voice of the character on Clone Wars and Rebels, was brilliant. It kind of came full circle, and she jumped right from the animation to the live action without skipping a beat. I love the setting of Trask and the Quarren villains. The hijacking was fun. The runtime is extremely short. I have to agree with Ryan on that. And I absolutely love Titus Welliver, but he was far too recognizable in that scene as the captain, and it kind of took me out of it a little bit. Overall, it was a very solid episode. I'll give it a 9, and I really want to see where the Battle for Mandalore goes in the future. So let's jump over to Chapter 12, The Siege. The episode opens with Mando and the child limping back to Navarro, with the Razor Crest looking slightly worse for wear. IG, is the Djarin dangerously close to becoming one of those people that you only see when you need something or hear from after their girlfriend breaks up with you?
Yeah, he's like, hey, I know you got a truck. You going to help me move? He limped that in and everything. And I guess, he's done some stuff for Navarro. So, like, he's got favors owed and everything. Dropping in like that. It really looked like it was held together with, fishing line and duct tape. And the fishing line is probably more true than not, since a bunch of waterborne people strung it together to make it work. But yeah, like at some point, he's going to have to use up all of his credit that he has there, because I would assume fixing a ship from that state, yeah, that's going to cost a little bit of money. Somebody's got to pay for it. Like nothing in any universe is ever free. And I know he's done a lot of things in trade, but it's still their stuff. So he's going to run into some things, but he is making a lot of friends on his way, because he does a lot of favors that he doesn't have to do. Like, just like in the last episode, he didn't really have to help the other Mandalorians take that ship. He could have just left, but he helped. So that buys you a favor later.
Well, having friends is definitely important. And Ryan, we get another deep dive Easter egg wise, not in the Star Wars world, but did you get a little bit of a Guardians of the Galaxy vibe with Baby Yoda unsuccessfully trying to fix the ship?
Yeah, that was really good. I didn't think about Guardians, but now that you mention it, it really almost is that scene. But I love that scene, and it's cool because I think it's showing his growth. Because I think on one hand, like, you don't want him to be. He was almost like he was an infant, basically, as how he was portrayed in season 1 for the most part. It's nice to see that there's some communication between them. And granted, it's not quite there yet. But in addition to the comedy of the scene, which is great, I think there is also like he's growing a little bit, and he's able to communicate, and to some extent he's understanding, that he had a job to do and he had to pull the wires. He just wasn't understanding the difference between red and blue. So I think the scene works on a few different levels, and it was a fun little scene to start it. And again, I think it gives him more to do while still being cute, so that it doesn't feel like it's overkill with just, oh, look, a cute expression from Baby Yoda, but not much else. So I love that opening scene.
Well, outside of him possibly being electrocuted, I did think it was hilarious. IG, the show was nearly flawless last year, but during the Cara Dune fight scene, you see a yoga mat on the ground as she does her roll. And then later in the episode, we see a random guy's arm in a scene. Now, I'm thankful that we got the season considering everything that has been going on during the pandemic. But do things like this matter to you, like the coffee cup in Game of Thrones, or do you just kind of shrug it off like, that happens? I
think it's the same guy. I think that guy just goes around from show to show and finds ways to put himself in for us to catch, so we can go, oh, a mistake. They spent $7 million on this episode and they made a mistake, and there it is. It just, like, I didn't notice it at all until I watched some videos about it afterwards. It didn't pull me out when I was watching the episode. And just like the Stormtrooper in A New Hope bashing his head, the very first probably 10 times I saw that, I didn't notice. But now I watch the movie just to see it. So it's fun to have those kind of things in there. It like, even talking about Game of Thrones, it upsets me that they went back in and digitally took out the coffee cup. Like, leave it there. Give us fans something to go look for sometimes. Leaving that guy, because not only you see his arm, you see his leg too. Dude's back there wearing a t-shirt and blue jeans. And that's great. Like, leave it there. Don't go in and digitally alter it and get rid of them, which they could do in an afternoon. It would take them literally no time to do it. But leave it there. Having those things, making it not perfect means the rest of us maybe someday have a chance of doing something. It's fine. It doesn't bother me that much. I think it's actually kind of endearing when those things are there.
I agree. I think that, look, there's somebody that gets paid a lot of money to make sure that stuff doesn't happen, and it kind of sucks for them. And I'm sure they'll get a stern talking to, if not, some walking papers. But it happened. It's not going to kill me. It's not going to take me out of it. I think it's funny, but I'm not going to. But it's funny because I watched it, and then we watched it again. I watched it like 3 times, and the third time I remembered saying to my wife, okay, there's a scene where there's an extra, apparently, well, not apparently, I saw the photos of it. I was like, there's a scene with an extra in the background. We got to look for that. We got to watch it. And I totally forgot about it and never noticed it. So it's like, okay, same thing with the cup in Game of Thrones. Like, I didn't notice it. I'm not analyzing every frame to see, what's going on. But yeah, something like that. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool that I could, go on to Disney Plus and look at the show and then pause it and see that. For me, it's kind of funny. And yeah, it's like, don't get rid of it. Leave it. Like, someone messed up. Now you got to find a way to make that guy in t-shirt and jeans canon. Just that's it. And we'll see someone dress up like him at Comic-Con, and that'll be that.
Cara Dune breaks up a potential ferret barbecue with a gang of Akluish at the Mando's old hideout. She thrashes them quickly. Ryan, your thoughts on her being the first plus-size superhero? I mean, is this something that we're going to gravitate toward? And do you feel that it works?
I think it's perfectly fine. Like, it doesn't bother me. I think in her case, I don't know that they selected her. I think they selected her because she's an actress who's a legitimate fighter who both has the physicality and the stunt skills to pull off those action sequences. But I don't know that they went out, seeking out a plus size actress to play the role. That being said, for anybody, it's how that our actor works. So you could get there are characters that are super skinny that aren't going to pull off like the action. So a lot of times I think it's up to the actor to make it believable. So, there are plenty of people who just aren't believable action heroes or action stars because of the way they move or the way they fight. I think in her case, like, she could be the size she was when she was fighting, which was like, I think she fought like 135 pounds, or she could be the size she is now. And she is very much a real fighter and also is able to pull it off in her sequences. So I believe that she's as tough as she is. So she pulls that off. So, I don't know, plus size or not, I think it's great to have more representation. And I think that studios shouldn't shy away from people because they're not like the ideal, supermodel size, but more than anything, I think, again, it's like as an actress, she pulls that off and it works for her. So, and it's believable. Like, I believe that she could whoop a bunch of, alien men, or human men or stormtroopers or whatever it is. Like, I believe that she could do that. And so it definitely doesn't take me out of it, where there are situations where you'll watch a show with like a waif thin, actress, beating up a bunch of guys, that are 220 pounds. And it's like, yeah, I don't believe it. And so it's both like the size of the person, but also that they just don't pull off that physicality to me.
I love it. I absolutely love it. The only thing that kind of distracts me a little bit is that I remember her being that fighter. If I didn't know her previous to this, she's a badass, dude. Like, she pulls it off. It really looks like, she's there to throw down. And she was like that during Deadpool too, where she is a force to be reckoned with. And if it was 10 years ago, chances are they would have shied away from casting her because they want somebody with, in the single digits as far as sizes. So the representation is great. I think it gives women that share the same figure as her someone to root for. I know I do, because that's the type of figure I find appealing. It makes me happy to see, and I hope we see more of it, because I get tired of seeing women that are carrying slightly little more weight around, and the only thing they're ever used for is comic relief. They're worth more than that. People should know that. The town that was the den of bounty hunters and Imperial troops that Cara and Grief now lead is a bright and clean place with a school. It felt very World of Warcraft for me. Like when we would do a mission and the whole area would brighten up and everything would be great and the bad guys are gone and life returns to normal, sort of like this last presidential election. And did you notice that there was an IG-11 statue in town since he helped stay? I mean, what did you think of the overall story progression of the town that they live in?
I thought it was great, having like a sense of normalcy, and like they really really embraced it. Like, it seems like families are moving in and they're bringing their kids and sending them to school, and everything is just kind of coming together nicely, like it's a respectable place to be. You know, not a wretched hive of scum and villainy anymore. It's a perfectly respectable town with an outpost just a mile outside that seems to house the enemy. But that's okay. That's different. They're not coming into town. They must have really good guards there, and that's fine. I thought it was really interesting that they had, because it doesn't seem that much time has passed since it was basically a den for bounty hunters, and now they've basically completely done a 180 and turned into something else. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was interesting, and I like seeing that they set that kind of thing up in this universe too, where kids got to learn, and we're going to send you to school and teach you how to fly hyperspace routes so you can all be truckers.
In the schoolhouse scene, Ryan, they did a lot of world building. A lot of trade routes were discussed in the inner and outer sections of the galaxies. But more importantly, out of all that, Baby Yoda uses the Force to steal some macaroons, which made me laugh, but also made me think back to the eggs. Has the cancel culture finally lost their freaking minds?
Anytime anything happens, there is always some think piece about why it's wrong. And, I don't ever know like what's serious, what isn't. I did see articles about Baby Yoda stealing the eggs, or, about, kind of being an asshole this season. And and I'm like, who has the time to, with all the stuff that's going on, who has time to write that stuff? More than anything, like when it comes to like just cancel culture in general, I think what bothers me about it is there are people who legitimately say and do horrible things and deserve to face consequences for it. But when you nitpick at every little thing, be it a fictional character or be it like, a comedian makes a joke that maybe is a little off color, or somebody said something 15 years ago and now you want them to lose their job because of it. When you do that, then it kind of muddies the water and then makes it harder to then say, well, here's a situation where somebody legitimately did or said something that should be, admonished, or that we should address, or where they do deserve consequences. And I kind of just laughed at the articles, and I don't know how serious people were in their frustration or anger for him doing it. But look, at the end of the day, it was written for jokes. I thought they were hilarious, and they work. Baby Yoda likes to eat stuff. We know that. We saw him eat live frogs. We see that he likes food. He likes macaroons. He stole it from a kid. Big deal. He used the Force to steal macaroons from a kid that were probably made with blue milk.
He tried to ask for one first. The kid said no.
Yeah, exactly. The kid was a dick. The kid was like, no. He could have given him a macaroon, but or he could have at least been polite about it. But no, he said no. So Baby Yoda took it. Big deal. So yeah, it's like it's dumb that anybody spent any time writing an article about him eating the eggs or eating macaroons. If you did that, you should be ashamed of yourself. And if you really want to find something to write about, there's a million things going on in the world that you can write about, and not, again, Baby Yoda eating some eggs.
What kills me, though, is that there's so many issues that you can legitimately be angry about. Yeah. With so many things. I mean, we just watched our whole election process, and they tried to subvert it. They tried to take away 6 million votes in Pennsylvania. There's so many things in the world that we need to be standing up for. Police officers standing on the back of the necks of people that they have cuffed. But we're going to worry about cartoon genocide. The fun police show up at every single turn, and it sucks just the life out of everything. What I do love about this, though, is that people are finally starting to push back. Like Bill Burr went on Saturday Night Live and said some inflammatory shit. And you know what? He doesn't care, because his bosses at Netflix know who Bill Burr is, and they know what they're going to get. It's enough already. It's a show. It's not based on real life. They weren't a real creature. They weren't a real egg, and a fake creature ate them. Let's just move on with our lives. Find some substance and importance in your life. Go get a date. Go get married. Go have kids. Do something that matters. Get off of Twitter and just stop complaining about every little thing. IG Horatio Sands returns as Mithril. I guess for comic relief. I guess to be the fourth wheel. I don't know. It was a nice callback to episode 1. But did you find his fish out of water story funny? Or was it one quib too many?
Maybe I'm just a pushover, but I liked it. I liked having him there. I liked having them have somebody to basically threaten. He kind of seemed to me like a verbal Wookiee, right? Somebody we could actually understand what he's saying. Because a lot of times, especially in the original trilogy, like Chewbacca was just kind of there. He wasn't super useful. He didn't do a whole lot of things. Like, he's supposed to be this big, strong thing and doesn't do anything really all that impressive most of the time. He does have a couple of times where he does some good stuff, but there's times where I see him and I'm like, why don't you just, rip his arms off like Han said Wookiees are prone to do? And he didn't. And so now we get the same thing with a blue guy that belongs on a water planet, has a water vest that spurts out stuff, and he's there for people to just verbally walk on, which is fine. I don't think it was all that bad of a thing. I think it was well placed. I think it was well acted. I like how Horatio Sands put on the character. It wasn't too much for me. Because they didn't lean on it real hard either. He was there. He was taking part. They were making fun of him, but it wasn't just that. It wasn't just like, let's lean real hard on this. So it worked. It was fine.
Ryan, the not so abandoned base actually turns out to be a possible cloning lab. We got a great call back to the Family Guy about the Empire's lack of OSHA safety railings. Did we just see the birthplace of your boy Snoke?
I guess so. I love that. Again, one of the great things about the show is as I criticize it, it's still a little short, but it does a great job of kind of tying into the larger universe without spending too much time, doing that. So we're not bogged down in them. They didn't spend 20 minutes trying to, explain to us what that facility was for. We got just enough information, and then, if you're a fan, you can start to come up with your own theories. If you're not a big fan, you're still going to kind of have a good idea of what it is. But I do love that about the show, and that there is enough content out there that you can start to come up with these theories. But yeah, it surely does seem like it might have been a cloning facility. It is a cloning facility, and maybe that is kind of a start to birthplace of Snoke, which would then also maybe explain why the stormtroopers from the base weren't then going back into the city to create, wreak havoc. Like, they had a more important job to deal with. So I really did like that, that we, again, it's opening up the world, opening up the story, and giving us a lot of potential things to work with. Cause yeah, it could be, directly related to the sequel trilogy.
IG, they can't, they won't. I mean, Dr. Pershing's lab reveals what they might have just indicated what they wanted the child for. They mentioned his MCAT. Baby Yoda can't equal Snoke and the Emperor clone, can it?
See, I don't think it's really going to. I think maybe they've had some other things going on, and they were just trying to unlock some stuff with Baby Yoda. And I don't know. I think we're going to get more, but the trick is we might not get it this season, because I'm not sure this is where the actual Snoke, the one that was sitting and got cut in half from a lightsaber, came from, because it blew up. So the stuff that's in there might not be there anymore, but it might have been the beginning of how they get the Emperor back and make other things happen. But I think this was just like part of the building blocks on how to figure things out. So you get samples from different places. They're going to find more than one donor who is force sensitive to be able to move some things around. They were doing so well. Like, I hadn't heard midichlorians for years, and now they bring up M count.
Yeah.
That's the one thing in this episode that made me go, ooh, M count. What are we doing?
I agree with you. And it got me a little, it piqued my ears a little bit, but I think it works because, obviously what they're trying to explain is, I don't think that Baby Yoda is part, or Snoke, or the future Emperor are part Baby Yoda, but I guess clearly they need force sensitive blood for whatever they're doing with the cloning. And maybe it is something else. Maybe it's not even Snoke. Maybe they're using it to create some other type of super soldier or something. But I do think that for whatever reason, when you're cloning a force sensitive being, I guess you need force sensitive blood as part of that process. And so maybe that's why, that's where they need his blood. And so I guess the M count was a way it's a wink and a nod to like us without outright saying like midichlorians. So I just took it as that. Like, we're not going to talk about midichlorians, but we'll just say M count, and it means force sensitive, and that'll be that.
It was a great episode, but back when we used to watch and cover The Walking Dead, when somebody had a big episode like that, they were going to die. The writing was on the wall. But in this episode, we had a lot of great battles and a lot of great character moments. But based off the lines and the action that Grief Kargan was involved in, was there any doubt in your mind, Ryan, that Carl Weathers directed this episode?
I mean, I knew he directed it coming into it, so I was kind of interested to see how how it would be different, if at all. And it was cool. I did listen to an interview with him, and I kind of got some insight into what he brought to the episode. And I really loved the episode. I really liked how it was directed. I like Grief Karga as a character. I kind of like when he's like kind of teetering that line between good and evil. Like you're not quite sure if he's on your side or not. And so this kind of like this version of him that's like, an administrator, public servant who's trying to just make a city good. It's kind of like, okay, cool. But I kind of like the version of him where I'm not quite sure if he's going to be on our side in the end. But I love having him in the episode. I love his interactions with the child for the little moment that he did. And there's no point where you feel like anybody's going to really die on this. And so maybe that, I don't know if that's something the show will ever go for, where it starts off in characters so that you do start to feel that anybody's life is on the line. But yeah, there's no point in the episode where I really felt like anybody was in real danger outside of maybe that fear that, oh crap, Baby Yoda's by himself munching on his macaroon, like is somebody gonna come in and like kidnap him? But beyond that, like I wasn't too concerned.
Yeah, Grief had some real strong Lando vibes in this episode though. Yeah. Like, administrator and running the town and all that stuff. It's like, we're respectable now.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, get that dude a cape.
I just love the fact that he was a potential predator for the child, and now he's become a doting grandfather.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
He grabbed him and started hugging him. And I guess if a child had saved my life, I would feel the same exact way. But I do like seeing the growth in the character, and I think they use him just enough. I don't know if he would be if he was in every episode, whether he would wear on you, but in the episodes he's in, he shines.
He's great.
IG, the lab gets blown up, and then we get into the big chase. Biker scouts blowing up, TIE fighters chasing our heroes back to town. Your thoughts on the episode and your rating?
Well, getting to see biker scouts again, they have long been my favorite type of stormtrooper. I love biker scouts and them coming out on the speeder bikes, chasing down and everything. It ended a little too quickly with them for me. Like they weren't shooting their guns from the speeder bikes quite enough. They weren't doing quite enough, but I still got a little taste and I was happy to have it because biker scouts are few and far between in the Star Wars universe. So when we get them, you got to cherish it. I think that it was pretty interesting watching them use that transport that was one of the original Star Wars toys that I think I have one upstairs too, like that ship that they were driving around in to try and escape. And that thing is built like a tank because they drove down and like the speeder bikes that followed them, like two of them didn't even make it down the hill. It was a really interesting chase. I thought it was a little contrived when Razor Crest all of a sudden shows up and starts shooting the TIE fighters down because you had to see that coming. They're like, yeah, you go back and get the kid and everything and we'll take care of stuff here. Yeah, that we knew that was coming. That was telegraphed from a mile away. There's no way that any other way that was going to end. But it was still fun. It was a fun chase. It was a fun way to get to the end. And then when they said, hey, yeah, we've installed a tracking beacon. Yeah, now there's going to be some real trouble, I think, coming for Mando because they know where he's at. And so the anticipation of when is he going to be struck is really kind of amping up now because they're going to come after him because he's got the child. They know that they can get, quote unquote, M count out of the child. Probably not a whole lot because he's pretty small, but it's probably a pretty high M count. Since he's had no training and still able to do some of the stuff he does, like levitating macaroons. That being said, still another great episode. A lot of fun to watch. I'm really excited. I'm thinking that I don't think they're going to make us wait a whole lot longer to get to Ahsoka, but I think there might still be one more episode before it happens, although I'm hoping the next episode we get Ahsoka, because I'd like her to be around for a couple of episodes and help some things out. I think that would be interesting. Like Mando has kind of been a lone wolf for long enough. Having somebody trail with him for a couple of episodes might be an interesting way to go. Like I don't want them to team up for the remainder of the series, but for a couple of episodes at a time, I think would be beneficial. That being said, I think I enjoyed it. 8.5 for me.
I really enjoyed this episode, as I think I've really enjoyed all the episodes. That sequence at the end, like Ig said, I think it was a little contrived in how it was set up. I did like how it played out. It was kind of cool with the smashing the one speeder on the side, the other guy getting blown to bits as he was about to toss the grenade. Then the TIE fighters show up. I actually didn't see the Razor Crest coming. I thought actually they did a good job of that, because I was so afraid of what was going to happen to the child that I figured that was going to be actually play into the story. So I was actually thinking, well, they're going to find a way back to the city, and then we're going to see that somebody's kidnapped the child and he's going to try to rescue him. So I was so concerned about the child that I never considered that, oh no, he was going to get him, and then they'd show up in the Razor Crest. So, maybe it's just me being naive and not thinking, but I was a little bit surprised when it happened. But again, great sequence. I love, the child kind of acting like it's a roller coaster and enjoying it, and even like the little throw up was cool, or I don't know, cool is the right word, but it was fun. Everything they do with them is fun. I enjoyed that, and like kind of the way the show ended. I like that little kind of epilogue at the end where there's the moment with Kim from Kim's Convenience talking to Cara Dune. Is kind of nice, like kind of recognizing the work that she had put in, and then that little the end and like teaser for what's to come, where we see a little bit of Moff Gideon and see that he that there's a tracker, so we know that he's coming. And yeah, I think I'm pretty sure Ahsoka's coming next week, because I actually figured she wouldn't show up this week because Dave Filoni is directing next week's episode. And so, him being such an influential part of the Ahsoka character, it only makes sense that he gets to direct her like in her first live action or in her live action debut. So I'm pretty sure we're going to get Ahsoka next week. Plus the episode title is The Jedi. So if we don't get Ahsoka, I'd be shocked. So I'm really excited about that. So again, like with episode 3, it does a great job of, being its own story and fun and kind of that feeling of impending danger, while also moving the plot forward and really giving us an idea of, okay, here, we're strapped in, we know where this season's going. So I really love this episode, and I will give it a 9.
Yeah, The Siege was a great mixture of storytelling and action sequences and callbacks. Every time they bring up the fact that Cara was from Alderaan, it just gives me chills. Just the thought of her losing everybody and being alone in the world, and then a chance to kind of make it even. The chase was amazing. It was fun. It was too short, but it was fun. I love seeing the biker scouts blow up as they misjudged the takeoff of the mountain. I loved seeing the TIE fighters in the air. It just felt like a blockbuster movie to me. The save at the end with Mando was great. The episode was a deep dive back into season 1, which I liked because we reintroduced Moff Gideon as a plot device. And I loved how they just dropped the Gideon bomb on our heroes. They're like, oh, he's alive? That's going to be a problem. We only have a few more episodes left and so much ground to cover. But like Ryan just said, and IG said, Ahsoka's coming, and she is a big part of the extended Star Wars universe past the movies. And now she's going to be part of the canon, which is The Mandalorian. And I'm excited about that. Like, I want to see what they do with her with live action. And I like the idea of a Jedi and bounty hunter team up. So if we could have a couple episodes of that, that would be great, because I'd love to see them fight together. I mean, we've got a lot of ground left to cover. This was probably one of my top 5 episodes so far, and I can't get enough of the connection between the animated shows, the books, the trilogies. It's just been great. I eat all of that up every week. It's a deep dive Easter egg hunt, and you can give me 27 more episodes of the season, and I would be just as happy. I give The Siege a solid 9.
And that's it. You made it to the end of another episode of the Cinik Radio podcast. I'm Igrihe, here with Cinik, who you can find at CINIKRADIO.com. Also, we had Ryan, who you can find at thejimwits.com. We'll be back next week with some new stuff for you. Send your crazy news stories, any comments, questions, and concerns to us at CINIKRADIO@gmail.com. Find us on the internet at CINIKRADIO.com. Look for us on Facebook at Facebook.com/CINIKRADIO. Find us on Twitter at CINIKRADIO. And find us on Instagram at CINIKRADIO. You can also head over to tpublic.com, search for Cinik, CINIK, and get your own Cinik Radio podcast gear. T-shirts, mugs, cups, stickers, all the cool Cinik Radio podcast stuff you could possibly want. It'd help the show, and we would greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for all the love and support. Keep listening, sharing it with your friends, like, listen, and subscribe. And until next time, don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and at CINIKRADIO.com. Available for download on iTunes.